I can't believe that's where I was standing, I didn't realize, like, and I feel like this is also like a thing that happens to me at every single concert that I go to. Somehow, like, where I'm standing, people decide, like, that's gonna be the lane, that's gonna be the travel lane, like, we're gonna go by that guy, and that's it. So, like, people just can't come and going. And so, like, people moved to a bunch where there's, like, super drunk people, and it's really going. And, but I, like, that was sort of, like, a walls nice and clean. And then I saw you guys play. Jim Harris at the airport, which he did. Really? Yeah, he came out here. But I saw the moment when that guy, like, he had to, like, where he, like, even managed to guys, like, try for you. So, like, wow. He's there, the guy, like, just like, yep, yes it is. Yep, my time. So, like, I don't know what the deal was with that section, like, whether they were there or whether they were paid extra for, like, a drink special or something. Yeah. And, like, they were everywhere. And it was just like, maybe that was it. But then the upside was started leaving. And so there was a seat. I mean, like the second to last game. You must be sitting for yeah, for some.
Savers.
Yeah, Flavor Savers. We had like that before. All savers. It looks like geocities or geocities.
Hello! Welcome everyone to the 16th annual Frigid Festival here at the Crane Theater. How's everybody doing? A friendly reminder before the show starts, please take this time, if you haven't already, to silence or turn off your phones. There is no video or audio recording for this performance. It is also very important that you keep your masks on for the duration of the show. Our performers and everybody at the Crane thanks you. In the matters of emergency, there are 2 exits, one being the way you came in, and another one backstage behind those curtains there. So, without further ado, please enjoy our very special screening of The Wizard of Oz.
Toto, did she hurt you? She tried to.
Hello. Oh, you all thought you were about to see the Wizard of Oz. How nostalgic. Grow up. Because what you're really in for tonight is an evening with my story. And put on your leashes, fellas. It's gonna be a long walk. Did you ever think you would get this lucky to see me? Me! The dog who played Toto in The Wizard of Oz! The cutest dog of the 20th century. Turn that off! Start my slides. Can I get a stool? Excuse me. No, back. Right here. You may go. Good help is so hard to find. You could watch The Wizard of Oz any old night, but to spend the evening with a star. Do you want me to stay? How about sit? I can do it all. I am very good in the film. Well, I'm very good in every film I'm in. The camera loves me. I've been in 16 films, all speaking roles. And I'm sure you've seen all of them. And that's why I wanted to come here tonight. I am so accomplished, but so few people know my story. Who could have dreamed that a little Karen Terrier from the middle of nowhere, California, would create this legendary film with Judy Garland. God, look how young I look there. Look how perky my 6 breasts are. I know. Toto, a famously male dog, was played by this bitch. I'm sure you would love to hear Hollywood's dirty secrets, right? You can applaud for that. Yes, I had the kibble to make your tails wag. I wanted to write a tell-all book, like other Hollywood luminaries, but it's difficult. I don't have opposable thumbs. And a good publisher is so hard to find. So, also I know a lot of divas do Twitter now, like share. But again, the opposable thumbs get in the way of that. So, my story will have to take place on this stage, right here. My name is Terry Spitz. I go by that name and no other name. Of course, you can call me Terry. And before we get too far in my story tonight, there is a rapidity to my life that you hardly imagine. For every year you luxuriated, 7 passed for me. So, adjust your perception of time if you want to keep up. When I got my big break in The Wizard of Oz, I was 7 years old in human years. So I was 49 in dog years. And I was acting across from a human child. The humiliation. I don't like human children. It's true. The showbiz ones have a habit of turning their canine co-stars into props, or even worse, pets. We are alive. We are on that set to work. And we are not your best friend. I show up on scene and I give you cheap, easy, always sincere papers. I suppose Judy does all right in that scene. For a human child. Now, no matter how talented you are as a showbiz dog, you've got to find a showbiz human. And as a dog, you gotta wait for the showbiz human to find you. There are no interspecies networking events, are there? Well, one did find me. Carl Spitz, the godfather of dog training in Hollywood. Without him, there would be no Air Bud, no Homeward Bound, no Marley and Me, no curiously sympathetic Cruella film. You're welcome, Emma Stone. I would say for a career renaissance. Paul, did she make it?
Tickets still at will call.
All right, we got one more show, Emma. Try to get here. Anyway, Carl found me, neglected and untrained, in Alta Delta, California, just north of Hollywood. My parents, at the time, would beat me when I peed inside. I had no idea why they were beating me. I just tried to love them, as a naive puppy does. And Carl ran a school that taught dogs the basics. To not confuse the carpet for grass. Which, while we're on the subject, is psychological tripwire that you humans put in place. Putting carpet inside is the same as putting a toilet in the living room and expecting humans not to use it. It's confusing. Anyway, Carl took me on and turned me into his prize-winning pooch. Those really were the best days. We'd travel the country, folks would pull over and watch me do tricks, and then they would put money in an upturned hat that Carl put out. Let me stuff my ears in here. They would do vaudeville, we would do vaudeville, children's parties, you name it. If they paid, we were there. How cute do I look in this hat? Thank you. My career made Carl valuable to human Hollywood. Of course, I made him successful. I'm the most successful dog of the 20th century. So, as another treat for you all tonight, turns out I'm an excellent vocalist. Minerva, I'm ready for you. I brought a cat accompanist. Thank you, Minerva. How was your nap? So this first song is for Carl, the best human trainer, father a pup could ask for. You made me pee outside. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. You made me sit for you, as if I wanted to do it. I never love to introduce all of you to Minerva, or you may know her as the cat, who played the cat in Breakfast at Tiffany's. I am so sorry you had to see that. Back to Carl. Those early years, we weren't much, but we had a damn good time. We kept each other fed. And what's wrong with a literal transaction in love? Dogs and humans have a funny bond. We are one of the only true, pure loves you may ever experience. And that's not your fault, that's just the way your species evolved. I know. Would any of you hairless perverts like to hear about a dog's sex life? Of course you do. As far as you're concerned, our sex life is the carnal frontier. I've seen you at the dog park. You look embarrassed, but you're wondering what would it be like to be so free. Well, let me tell you. You know Lassie? Now, I know you won't answer this, but if you had to fuck a dog, it'd probably be that one, right? He was my lover. Doggy style lover. It's always doggy style for me. Oh, I'm so sorry, Vitus. This bowl of gin is getting to me. Now, I am the most famous dog of the 20th century. Yes. But Lassie is a close second. And like me, Lassie was an excellent example of gender-blind casting in dog Hollywood. You knew him as Lassie, fun-loving female frontier pup. And I knew him as Pal Weatherwax. The sexy dog next door. Pal was my Cary Grant. My Timmy Chalamet. It is difficult to remember a time that I wasn't the biggest canine star the world had ever seen, but it's true. I have humble beginnings. And Pal, though a dog, is a male dog. And the males don't always know what they're looking at, do they, ladies? We were neighbors, but in those first few years after Carl rescued me from those pet abusers, I was of almost no consequence to Pal. So, I had to make an impression when he finally trotted my way at the old Hollywood dog park. He said, "Hello." And I'm much smaller than him. And I said, "I'm sorry, who are you?" As if I hadn't been watching him outside my kitchen window for the last 2 years, but I wasn't going to throw him my bone, if you know what I mean. Who am I kidding? I wanted him, he wanted me, we're dogs. So, after an obligatory butt sniff, which is how dogs sniff consent, he mounted me right there. There aren't many rules when you're a dog. And while Pal was a fantastic lay, what really fascinated me about him was the career that he enjoyed. Pal was in demand. He was respected. I'd never seen a dog command such human-like respect. And I remember thinking to myself, if this good boy can do it, so could this good girl. If Bing was the stick, I was just the pup to bite down and never let go. I would become an institution like Lassie. This old dog would learn some new tricks. All of a sudden, I could shake, I could roll over, I could run from one side of the room to the other, perfectly choreographed. I could cheat out 30 seconds at a time, all the while on my hind legs. And now, for my greatest trick. Have you ever seen a dog do that? So, it's no wonder that I started booking. Big time booking. Starring across from the biggest human actors of the day, 16 films, kind of booking. I wasn't just a cute face anymore. I was more than a traveling troubadour. I was bigger than a paycheck. I was a star. And Carl took my determination in stride. If I was ready to be a star, Carl was ready to train a star. And I couldn't have made it in the movies without him. Carl is one of those rare humans who can communicate effectively between the dog world and the human one. Together, we invented the method they still use in Hollywood today of silently directing dogs off the soundstage. I loved the movement of his hands, so swift and exact, so unlike a human's usual movements. No matter what scene I was in, whether I was acting across from Clark Gable, who I worked with, or Shirley Temple, who was a total bitch. Don't let that face fool you. Carl's hands were my real scene partners. He was the one I trusted. And doggone it, if I wasn't ready when there was a casting notice in The Dog LA Times looking for a little Karen Terrier, my exact breed, to star in an MGM film, Carl and I both knew the role of Toto rightfully belonged to me, but we still had to convince the bigwigs at the studio. So, as another treat for you all tonight, would you like to see the audition? All right. It won me the role of Toto, just so you know. Paul, I'm ready. Not as young as I once was. Can you bring my gin bowl down here, please? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Safe to say, I got the part. Oz was my moment. Of those 16 films I'd been in before, you want to know how many times I was credited? 0. Not once had the name Terry Spitz flashed across the screen. Oz had to change that. The role of Toto is expansive. The whole plot revolves around the actions of that dog. I was necessary. I was indispensable. I would go from the prop animal actor I was to the star I know I am. Well, I wasn't on that set for 5 minutes when who should sweep me up in her milky human forearms but Judy Garland. You think I was flattered by that? What if someone 6 times your size and a 1/4 of your age just picked you up? Sure, she was already a legend. She'd been in all the Andy Hardy films with Mickey Rooney. But honestly, I wanted to bite her. I even let out a small growl. But then I caught the look on Carl's face, and I relented. I could never disappoint that man. So, I let her coo over me. Do you know what her real name is? Does anyone? Frances Gum. Frances Gum, from Grand Rapids, Minnesota. The Midwest girl with the unforgettable voice. My hearing is twice as good as yours. Her voice really is quite impressive. But I could tell when she held me, because we dogs are very attuned to every emotion you humans put yourselves through. I could tell that Frances Gum was a raw fucking nerve. I think that's why I wanted to bite her. I wanted to stop. To stop that poor girl from wanting to love me so dearly. Now, whether or not you think I can justify biting a child, I was an asset on that set, and I brought in more money than I'd ever seen before. $125 a week. That's $2,000 by your standards. And Judy brought in $500 a week. Of course, Ray Bolger, Bert Lahr, and Jack Haley, who played the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, and the Tin Man, each made $3,000 a week, which is 6 times what we made put together. But it was still more money than I'd ever seen. And you've got to be grateful for what you get in this business. I was the sole breadwinner of my family, and I didn't mind taking care of Carl. Judy, too, was the sole breadwinner for her family. Her mother was Ethel Gum. Ethel Gum is the kind of woman dogs don't like. You know what I'm talking about. In many ways, Ethel operated the same way for Judy that Carl operated for me. Birth the talent, cultivate the talent, hawk the talent around to see who's buying what you're selling. Of course, in our business, it's always on the buyer's terms. Oz changed my life, but it also changed Carl. Power does that to you. We weren't just doing tricks on the vaudeville stage anymore. He was rubbing elbows with Louis B. Mayer of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, having a highball with Humphrey Bogart. You know what Clark Gable said of Carl? He said, "Any dog trained as Carl Spitz has trained them cannot fail to become man's best friend." And I played that on screen. I even played it way back on the vaudeville stage, but it wasn't my reality. I was starting to feel like, well, his prop. There was even a day on set where Carl forgot to give me water for 8 hours. And it wasn't until Judy bent down to play with me that anyone even noticed how dry my nose was. What are you gonna do? That's what you humans want. It's what you always want. Whatever gets you more money, more power, more status. One morning, while I was still mired in the doubt that Carl's distance created, that marvelous institution, Hal Weatherwax, whacked his tail on my trailer door while I was supposed to be resting. Is there any better antidote than a good leg? Afterwards, we were lying on our bellies, soaking up the cool linoleum of the floor, and Hal looked at me and said, "It's all about to happen for you, Terry." I just rolled my eyes. Ladies, isn't it just like a straight male collie to tell you something you already know? It was all happening. That set was full of intrigue and glamour, full of big personalities like Bert Lahr, who played the Cowardly Lion. Although, I'll just say it, humans are terrible at playing animals. And Margaret Hamilton, who was creating the Wicked Witch of the West. And then there was me, holding that damn production together. I was in that dream factory we call Hollywood, making movie history. With my dog trainer father and my scenes all learned and my tail well high above my head, I went to film a ditty out in Culver City and fetched some Oz took 3 dog years to film. I watched as the humans aged hardly at all, and I felt myself grow a little older, a little stiffer. However, I had that glorious feeling of being exactly where I was supposed to be. And that's the right of a canine life. One of the worst infections of being around you humans is never feeling that way, or struggling to feel that way. When was the last time you felt that way? Tonight, right? When Judy performed, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Sometimes that feeling prevailed over the entire lot. Watching Judy sing, watching Bert Lahr fall asleep in his lion skin like a real king of beasts. Even watching Margaret Hamilton's terrifying portrayal as the witch. Everything was coming together on that set in a beautiful synchronicity that I usually only felt in flashes on very, very long walks. I'll stop boring you. Chicken carcasses with faces. What makes that feeling so precious is that it has to come to an end. There is a scene in the film, I'm sure you're familiar with it. And maybe it was Carl's continuous lack of care for my safety, pushing me to perform and perform. Can you play it, please? As you can see, the Winkley soldiers are marching outside of the witch's castle after she's captured Dorothy. And they were marching, and they were marching, and they were marching, and the thump of their boots got louder and louder. But I never lost my head. I knew this movie would demand a lot of me, but I was professional. I was proving myself. And they marched, and they marched, and they marched, and it was an accident, but what a violent accident. A very large human foot found its way to my neck. I woke up in a place I'd never been before, like some hungover human actor after their first night out on the town in Hollywood. And I was lying on my belly, like I usually am. And I could hear a very soft voice somewhere in the distance. And I remember rousing very slowly, and I wondered to myself, is this dog heaven? But then I realized it had to be the real world because of the pain that I felt in my back and in my legs was unlike any pain I'd ever felt before. And that voice got louder and closer. And then, there she was. Judy, standing in the doorway with a bowl of food in her hands. She didn't have her pigtails in, which almost made me laugh, but it was also the first real concrete thing that made me realize forgive me, I wasn't in Kansas anymore. She came over to me and she said, Terry, you got a little bit hurt, but I'm going to make you better. She was convinced she could. I made it clear at that exact moment that I was only thinking about the food. I am a dog. So she picked me up gently off the bed, which still hurt so much that I yelped, and placed me in front of the food. And I ate hungrily. I found out later that day that I'd been in and out of consciousness for the last 4 days, and I hadn't been able to keep much down. And while I was out, Judy had asked Carl if she could take care of me, and I don't know if he'd been skeptical, but either way, he decided to let her. After I finished the food, a sense of warmth and invulnerability spread throughout my body. There have been painkillers crushed in the meat. Now I know. Judy Garland and pills, not usually the best combination, but they were useful. This time. And they were for me. It didn't hurt anymore. She could pick me up, put me back on the bed, and all I felt was sweet and easy surrender. I spent 2 weeks holed up at Judy's place while, on set, apparently they replaced me with a stuffed Karen Terrier. My worst fear realized. Judy would come home at the end of the day and tell me all about it. I missed Carl, I did, but Judy's home was warm, and her joy at having me there was the strangest, most marvelous thing. I remember she performed her duties as caretaker with a gusto unique to Judy Garland. She would carry me out to the grass to pee, and she would sing little show tunes while I did my business, and she would change the lyrics to be more suitable for a dog. It's actually where I get my songs. You know, you may meet me outside. We would lie next to each other and she would pat me for hours, and we would fall in and out of sleep in that way you do only when you are perfectly content. Judy spoke to me like she knew I had a soul. Not all humans do. She confided in me effortlessly. She told me all about Grand Rapids, how she left when she was 3 years old. And when she talked about her hometown, as fragmented as the memory of it must have been for her, it was with an intense reverence. I could tell that her identity as a Midwest girl who could have had all the lovely, small details of a Midwestern life was sacred to her. Together, I think we got a taste of the life that could have been, running parallel to the absurd Hollywood one, and the cynical human side of me saw a girl play acting in a life she'd never known, just as manufactured as anything else in Culver City. But the canine side of me saw a girl who was just trying to grasp at something that should have been hers in the first place. She was the Midwest girl she was supposed to be. I was the Karen Terror I was supposed to be. There was no paycheck to be had, no trick I had to perform to earn a pat or even my supper. I was being taken care of for the first time in my life because of someone's sincere wish to take care of me. When Carl came to pick me up, I was nestled in Judy's forearms in her living room, and Carl looked at me and seemed so happy to see me healed and ready to go back to work. And he went to take me from her arms, but she said, "Mr. Spitz, I've had such a wonderful time with Terry. She and I are good together, and I was wondering." And she had to pause to catch that forceful breath of hers, and in that moment of silence, I realized how much I wanted what she was about to ask. "Mr. Spitz, I wanted to adopt Terry once filming was over. I can give you a generous sum, and I think it would be good for her. She's worked long enough. I think it's time to retire." I was right here, and her heart was a rapid metronome against my small body. I'm only 8 pounds. You can tell. She wanted me. I mean, she really did. That girl who could move entire theaters, and she wanted me. But Carl gave her a winning smile, and he said, "Judy's an actor." Excuse me, Terry. "Terry's an actress, just like you, Judy. What if someone wanted you to retire?" And then he took me from her arms. And then we drove away. I was in a kennel, in the back of Carl's Cadillac, and in that car, I realized I was losing something I hadn't even known I wanted. How ridiculous is that? How silly to realize that only when it's too late to have it back. Now, I know humans aren't trained to understand a dog's bark, but if you've seen her perform or heard her voice, you know what I'm talking about. Try to understand. You know what one human critic wrote about seeing her perform. He said, "Why did we grow silent? Self-forgetting, our faces lit as with so many candles, our eyes glistening with unregarded tears. Why did we call her back again and again and again, not as if she'd been giving a good performance, but as if she'd been offering salvation?" Like I said, a human critic wrote that. Actually, the self-forgetting he talks about, Judy didn't make me forget myself. She made me remember myself. The night is bitter, your tail is lost its quiver. 1 year is 7, closer to doggy heaven, and all because of the girl that got away. No more her control to call, resounding through our thoughts. That golden lane down which we led made you astray. The fame that freed you has gone on to short-leash you. That time together couldn't survive weather. Don't know what happened, it's all a crazy game. No more that all-time thrill. Oh, you've been through the puppy mill, and never a new love will be the same. What a good dog, yes, good girl. Your tricks are all you're good for. The little dog learned to love, and where's she gone to? The road gets rougher, it's lonelier and tougher. You'll whine at the door, dog, but what's it all for, dog? There's just no let up. The live all night and day. Ever since this world began, there is nothing sadder than one girl puppy looking for the girl that got away. The girl that got And the rest, as they say, is history. We got the dog bed out, please. someone should train her. Everyone remembers Dorothy and Toto, Judy and Terry. Even Carl had to admit that he'd never seen me attached so completely to another human before, but that was just something that made his job easier. There was a party given once filming was over that Louis B. Mayer attended, and as a stunt, Carl stood up on a chair, held me in one arm and a certificate in the other, and announced to present company that my name was now legally changed to Toto. Down there. And that credit that I'd worked so hard for, fought so hard for, it wasn't even my name. Toto as Toto. That's a little cruel, Paul. And that would be the only credit I would ever get, my dear human friends. Well, what are you gonna do? It's show business. You get a little love, it gets taken away, right? Oh, I know. You're all wondering. Yes, I did see Pal again. But it was our last meeting. I realized that Pal wasn't too good for me. Too distracting. But Pal was sweet. He was waiting for me after the Wizard of Oz premiere to wish me congratulations. And he looked at me levelly. Look at old Lassie posters. Pal's got gorgeous eyes. And he said, "How's it going, Toto?" Pal got the joke. And I shot back. Same as ever, Lassie. His tongue lolls out, he licks me. And it occurred to me to ask him, "Pal, do you ever wish that this shit would just end? Do you ever wish we could just be dogs?" And he cocked his head. And he said, "I don't know if I could be anything else, Terry." And I was so relieved that he used my boring name that I licked him. Dogs. His tail started wagging and he said, "It's all about to happen, Terry, you'll see." It had all already happened. Pal went on to have a rich and wonderful career, and I watched it all from afar. He stayed beautiful and magnetic. And when they put Lassie on the TV in the 60s, Pal was actually the first Lassie in the pilot episode, and then he retired, passing the Lassie torch. The last scene I shot with Judy was somewhere over the rainbow. Seems appropriate, doesn't it? The performance was earned by both of us. One last one.
Beyond the footfalls of human Hollywood, there's a home that I heard of where a dog can just be good. Somewhere in that sweet home, bones are thrown for all of those good dogs that only wish to roam. Someday this dog will run so far and leave the role of movie star behind me, where tongues roll just like Tootsie Rolls, just chow that I've been to where a dog can just be good. If happy little doggies lie in grass so green, why, oh, why can't I?
Thank you all so much for joining us. A quick reminder before we go. 100% of the box office sales do go directly to the artist. And many of you may be asking, hey, how do you keep the lights on in this place? Well, that's where audience members like you come in. Every night after each show, we will have somebody out with a donation jar. Feel free to, we use that money to pay our staff, our technicians. As I mentioned before, keep the lights on around here. So if there's anything you want to donate, single dollars, 5s, 10s, 20s, whatever makes you feel generous, we will be right outside the door with the jar ready for your donations. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. I'm in your way.